I'm Drew Coles.
I'm Erin Coles.
And this is Met Player Monday.
Today we're sharing our advice on how to effectively work with your future spouse when planning your wedding.
Considering the best practices for working with your partner when wedding planning are important anyway. But they're especially important now that you're likely spending 24/7 with this person, as we're isolating ourselves, of course, to stop the spread of the coronavirus. So we're excited to provide you with some advice on how to work with your partner because we have a lot of experience in that realm.
We do. The first tip is be nice to your partner. As you're planning your wedding, think of your partner like a coworker. Treat your future spouse with the same or an even higher level of courtesy and respect as you would someone with whom you work. Be flexible with your ideas and ways and expect to compromise more than you would with an unrelated coworker. And of course, always do your best to be respectful of one another.
The next tip is to listen to your partner. You can avoid many arguments with this one simple act. Even if you disagree, always let your partner finish expressing their thoughts. If you cut them short or are too quick to criticize, you'll likely spiral into an incredibly unproductive space. Our next tip is to understand your partner's decision-making style. A contributing factor in creating conflict can be the difference in how partners make decisions. One of you may be more guided by facts rather than emotional components that often need to be factored into decisions that impact or are impacted by family or traditions.
Another contributing factor is that one partner may be less likely to compromise or concede depending on the topic or choice that needs to be made. Despite your disagreement, try to understand your partner's viewpoint and concerns. There is always a middle ground.
Next, separate the time that you would normally spend with one another from the time that you would spend wedding planning. You need to be able to put on a different hat when you're planning your wedding and when you're just enjoying each other's company. Now that you're likely working from home together, that's just another hat that you're going to have to put on and take off as needed, depending on the situation.
So what's most important is that whatever happens in your work life stays in your work life, and whatever happens in your wedding planning land stays in wedding planning land. That way, the time that you have set aside just to enjoy each other remains sacred. If you're annoyed with your future spouse for hogging the Wi-Fi with video conferencing calls, or you're frustrated that your partner has been spreading all of their papers out on the dining room table, that should have no bearing on what happens when you're spending quality time together or working on your wedding plans. Of course, this is much easier said than done, but with a little practice, you'll learn to keep these parts of your life separate and well integrated.
This next tip is to find ways to be clear about and maintain your own individuality. There will be things that each of you will gravitate towards in the wedding planning process. Sometimes when couples work very closely, they can find it difficult to maintain a sense of identity and individuality, meaning that they feel that they have to just agree on 100% of everything and every single aspect of the wedding. More than agreement, empathy is key. When we were planning our wedding, I made the near fatal mistake of blurting out that I didn't care one single bit about the flowers that we were going to choose. Wrong move. This totally alienated Erin, and it made her feel like she was alone in the planning process. So instead of claiming that you don't care about something, we're suggesting that you lean into your strengths and listen to your partner when they're addressing a point that they're passionate about, like flowers, for example.
We suggest being explicit and upfront with what you find particularly interesting or what you find especially important in the planning process. This could be something you've always dreamed about including, an important family tradition your family's expecting to see represented, or a part of your story as a couple that you'd like to honor. Don't assume that your future spouse is on the same page. Share the importance with them and make the decision together on what should be included. For example, flowers were super important to me because my late grandmother had a beautiful garden, and flowers were always a huge part of my relationship with her and with my own mother. Further, my parents were planning to help a bit in the flower budget because of how much it meant to us. I did not share this up front, and it would have been super helpful if I had.
Further, if you work too closely, you might run the risk of stepping on each other's toes. So to avoid this, make sure it's clear what each person's responsibilities are. A very popular delegation is that of researching bands or DJs to the person in the relationship who is slightly less detail-oriented. This isn't because details don't matter when picking wedding entertainment. This is because some of the other components of wedding planning might take far more meticulous attention to detail. Then once the initial research is done, the two of you can come together and make the final decision, instead of being in the weeds together throughout the entire process. So leverage each other's unique strengths, and you'll find that you're each superheroes in your own right.
Our next tip is to maintain separate working spaces if you can. Now that you're likely together 24/7, it's important to give yourself some space from one another. And one of the best ways to do this is to maintain those separate working spaces. For example, I work from our home office and Drew works on the dining room table. So this way we have a door and about 20 feet of space separating us.
This also helps us separate sound from our Zoom calls, because I must admit that the teaching that I do for Teachers College Columbia University has a tendency to be a bit bombastic.
Boisterous.
Passionate.
But sometimes a little too loud.
I don't know what you mean. And with us, occasionally, instead of walking into the other room to talk about a project or another aspect of our business, we're simply yelling from room to room.
Because we've been known to do that from time to time.
We'll actually email, text, or Slack one another, which maintains that space that we mentioned before. It minimizes communicational breakdowns and maintains a sort of paper trail that we can use to track projects or even confirm simple things like what we're having for dinner tonight.
And make sure you get enough alone time, even if that's just to be alone with your own thoughts for a while. Go for a walk safely, read a book, watch a show, take a bath. Just take a few moments to do something for yourself. Everyone needs a little space.
Our next tip is to decide on common goals and really try to focus on when you agree on things. Agreeing what you're working toward will help the both of you stay on track for success. Also, if you strive to find common ground wherever possible, you'll form an excellent habit that will pay off when hard or uncomfortable decisions arise. Like, for example, when that third cousin of yours wants to give a 20-minute long speech with a slideshow and handouts at your wedding. Or any decision in which the members of your given or chosen family feel as if they have a particularly large stake in that decision, like the inclusion of religion if you're not of the same faith, or who sits where at your wedding, or other things like that. Remember that you and your future spouse are on the same team, and while family is of the utmost importance, the star players on that team are you and your partner.
Lastly, the most important thing to keep in mind, no matter what's going on with your career or wedding planning process, is that your relationship must come first. If you try all of the strategies we've mentioned and working together is still presenting issues, then the most important thing is to protect your relationship. That might mean that you need to hire a wedding planner to relieve some of the stress and decision fatigue, or you might decide to pull in a trusted friend or family member who's willing to offer some planning assistance.
Remember that the two of you love each other, and you've agreed to spend the rest of your lives with one another. So that means making it work no matter what. What's most important is that you find solutions that preserve your relationship and help you make it to W Day. We hope this has been helpful. And just as a reminder, we are here to help. We are rooting for you, and whether the Met players are at your wedding or not, we're pulling for the day when you get to make musical memories. So that means making it Sorry.
It's okay.
Initial. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Make musical memories,
Hey!
Aaron. No, this is not a song. This is how I talk when I'm teaching for the university. Sorry
Your voice,
that this is loud. I am passionate. Could you imagine if I did that? If I should include a pan in some project I do in the future.
Yeah, you probably should. I think that's a good idea.
Ooh.
Oh, special.
Uses. Whoa. All right.
All right, we're signing off for the day. Thank you.
Namaste.
We love you.
Namaste home. Oh, that was good. That was good. We're a comedy duo. We should start a comedy YouTube. I keep spitting crazily. Did you see that one last one? I was like,
do you think you can see it? Probably not.
I don't care. We had that one take and it's going in.
Done.
Done, 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 done. Hey, hey, hey.